What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mythic 101 with SCFPLAYS. I'm your host, SCF, and today we're going to walk through the bare bones, the bare necessities, the minimum knowledge you need to know to run a Nexus Point Xenus. Let's get started. Please note this video is for educational purposes only. This information is geared towards newer or returning players to Mythic Plus who may not know everything that's going on. This video is not for Mythic Plus degens or chasers. This is not the latest tech or a hack. Please keep that in mind as you're watching through. So running into this first pull, it's a little tricky depending on how your tank wants to tank it. This tank in particular is going to pull the whole room and we're going to lust it. So there's a lot to focus on here, a lot of damage coming your way. As a DPS or just in general, your main focus are going to be these Arcanists, just simply so that we can interrupt their arcane explosions. Those are critical to interrupt. So I just lusted. I'm going to keep my focus on this. There are other mobs. These lingering images of Lothraxion himself will do a frontal. Avoid the frontal. They also do a melee front swipe like that on the ground. As the tank, you just need to avoid that. You're going to take the hit regardless, but you can avoid it just by running out of it. See, I just took that frontal because I was too busy trying to trap that guy. So I got disoriented in the frontal. It's alright. We're paying attention now. I'm just messing up to show you guys what happens. But yeah, Arcanists are your focus to interrupt that arcane explosion. These little AoEs that go off leaving these pools on the ground, as simple as just avoiding them. The searing rend from the image is that frontal swipe on the tank, which the tank then has to move out of, and then we avoid that cone frontal, which will disorient you. These Shadow Guard guys, they do damage, they do some melee hits, but nothing terrible. Just as a reminder, this week is an affix of a Voidbound Emissary, so you'll see us attacking those. That is not set specific to the dungeon, it just happens to be over time, whatever the week is. So moving into this next room, we've got more of these Shadow Guard dudes. Again, not your priority target. We have Engineers in this room. Now, it's very important that when these Engineers go down, you pay attention because they will drop a core, one of these batteries that you see like over here on this side of the screen, that need to be killed immediately. There are also in this room a lot of interrupts going off, or interrupts that need to go off, such as, I don't know how that guy got pulled. The Arcanists, see there's a battery over here. This becomes the priority. We have to get that battery down. So now there's another battery. I'm going to actually focus this Arcanist so that I can interrupt that arcane explosion, especially because I'm a ranged DPS. It's easier for me to interrupt it than anything else. There are also Adepts that do an Umbra Bolt. That can be interrupted, but if you don't have an interrupt available, it's okay. You can crowd control it too, but that Arcanist is your main point of focus. Now we also have Circuit Seers. These guys, same thing. They do Arcane Mana, which cannot be interrupted. It's just part of their AoE ability. Battery coming out, I'm going to focus that. There's an arcane explosion, that guy interrupted it. So this guy is my focus until he passes, just because I want to interrupt that arcane explosion. Now we have an Adept in here casting an Umbra Bolt, which can be interrupted. We've got Shadow Guards and also an Emissary. All the while you are avoiding these pools shooting out at you from these like mana things over here. I don't really know what you would call those, pipes. Just avoid the stuff on the ground. Alright, another Arcanist in this next pack. I'm going to focus this. Now, I do want to make this very clear for this hallway in particular. This hallway of Nexus will make or break your team, simply because there is so much damage coming out in the forms of AoEs, in the forms of these things on the ground shooting out. Everything. It is massive damage to not just the tank, but the group in general. It is a tough hallway to heal through. And while it is mostly tanked gauntlet style, especially the higher you go in keys, it is extremely, extremely difficult to get through this hallway sometimes. So that's why I'm telling you to focus on enemies such as that Arcanist and the Seers, making sure that when an Engineer is in the group, you're paying attention to where that battery goes, you're paying attention to the Arcanist arcane explosion to interrupt it, just like that. You need to be highly focused in this hallway in particular because it will make or break your team. Now this tank is doing a fantastic job of zigzagging because you literally have to, and he's doing a fantastic job making sure not to aggro too much so that our healer can still handle it, and it's going good so far. The other thing that I want to point out that I didn't before, which my apologies, see this ring on this person? This is doing damage to them only if they move. So if you get one of those on you, do not move. I know if you're melee, it's very difficult. Simply just stay still, do what you can. See that person? They should be staying still because it's going to do damage to them. See their health going down? Now, the good news is there are ways to remove that off of yourself. And you might have just noticed him do it just now, and you probably noticed me do it earlier. Okay, battery out. Pause, battery out. Gotta focus the battery. If you have anything that removes snares or removes movement impairing abilities, like I have disengage and feign death as a hunter, I can get out of it. Paladins have blessing of freedom, they can get out of it. All right, we got a battery back here. I'm gonna try and get this down. So if you have the ability to get out of movement impairing things, use that on it. It's no different than Seat of the Triumvirate. Oh wait, there's another battery back here. It's no different than Seat of the Triumvirate, and you can just simply get out of it. Still, we are interrupting these arcane explosions. Still, we are watching where we're standing on the ground to avoid any excess damage. And the other thing with those rings is if I am standing, just like with Seat of the Triumvirate, if I am standing on somebody that has a ring, I am taking damage. So I want to move rather than having that person move. Like if I'm the tank and a melee DPS starts having that ring around them, I will actually move the mobs rather than asking the DPS to move. So going into this first boss, this is all about where your tank, like this is heavily dependent on your tank and their placement. It is sort of a difficult fight for melee DPS, and that's okay. I have a blue arrow on me. See how that blue arrow turned into lines being blue, as well as putting sort of a containment cell around me? Yeah, lines will shoot out of this boss from these little pylons around the room, and at random he will target players with a containment cell. And that containment cell can break apart those lines, just like that. So you'll know you're targeted because a blue arrow will go over your head, i.e. right there. And you want to try and get rid of as many lines as possible when you are targeted. If you can get rid of a cross-section, you literally wait for it, get rid of the cross-section. However, it is important that you do it strategically and at the precise time. Do not run into the cross-section as soon as you have the arrow on your head. Wait until there is a cell put around you and the lines turn blue. Just like that.
Stay away from lines.
The other part that you just saw come out was a massive, like, circle, a massive orb come out. He will do that periodically throughout the fights, and depending on where you're baiting the tank, or sorry, the tank is baiting the boss, will depend on where that comes out. The goal is to kind of have him do it on the corners of the room, right? So when that comes out, first of all, get out of the big circle. You don't want to take that damage naturally. However, you also want to just be outside of it if possible, because it does a knockback when it lands, and it can potentially knock you back into these lines. And if you get knocked into these lines and you stand there, you are going to take massive damage. So watch it knock me back. I'm going to stand here. Hopefully he doesn't die. Boop! I just get knocked back a little bit. So I positioned myself appropriately. And that's the first boss. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But it really comes down to where your tank is placing it throughout the fight. I have to say that with an abundance of caution. If your tank is not placing the boss properly, it gets tricky. The more melee DPS you have, it gets even trickier. It's just a fact. Alright, we are about to start the next hallway. In this hallway, there are a lot of interrupts. There is a nullifier, which looks like a big void walker. These guys right here, void callers, and then nullifiers look exactly like them as well. They do a bolt that can be interrupted, as per usual. But the biggest thing that you need to watch out for in this hallway is not just the interrupts, not just worrying about getting the mobs down. You see these guys over here in the corners? There's a couple of them throughout the room. When these nullifiers get killed, they release these little sludges. Those sludges need to go down because they will try and reawaken these things. It's important that you chase the sludges. Like, even if you're just like, oh, like one is fine. No. So right here they are. I'm going to start targeting them. Now, I have a freezing trap, but I don't necessarily have a crowd control. You can stun them. You can push them back. You can do whatever you need to do. The other thing is these heralds. They will spawn lines. Oh, see, there's another smudge right there. See that line right there? Something will shoot out of that, just damage. Just avoid it. Just stand out of the way of it. It's not that big of a deal. The farther you are from that nullifier to begin with, which I understand It's not easy if you are a melee DPS, trust me. But the farther away you stand during that little intermission, the easier it is for you to avoid them. And then, if these guys get activated, they are called Dread Flails, and we will actually face a Dread Flail in a short amount of time, and I'll be able to show you what their abilities is. Ooh, I did not mean to aggro that guy. So there's a smudge. I'm going to make sure that goes down. Essentially, if you guys focused on, if you have run Windrunner Spire or watched the guide, you know those orcs that just do a big whirlwind? Yeah, they essentially do that. They target a player and they whirlwind towards that player, so it does do massive group damage. Unfortunately, it's unavoidable. That's why we don't want to awaken that many. We want to awaken as little as possible. So hopefully your tank is placing the nullifiers and the groups of mobs with enough space between them and these Dread Flails that are incapacitated around the room so that you have time to get the smudges just like that. I accidentally turned my nameplates off and panicked on turning them back on. So it's just a matter, again, huge tank placement dungeon. Like, I cannot stress that enough, but also just DPS has to focus on who and what is being aggroed. If there's a nullifier, it is incredibly crucial that you target those nullifiers and you pay attention to when they're going down, knowing that smudges will be coming out. And with these heralds, see, I'm just standing there. I'm avoiding the lines. It's no different than Seat. It's no different than any other dungeon where there are things coming at you at any given time. You just avoid the lines. Nullifiers interrupt. When the nullifier goes down, start trying to find that smudge. It's as simple as that. There's a smudge going away right there. It is a lot to focus on at one time. I completely understand and respect that it's going to take time for you to understand it. That's why I'm putting together these guides. So at any time, if you're concerned or confused as to what is happening, just rewatch or replay, whatever you need to do. So here's that Dread Flail. This is intentionally being fought. It has to be fought. But it will target a player and just start flailing throughout the group. So just watch where that is headed. Sometimes it targets the tank, and as a melee DPS, it gets really tough to avoid. I'm going to be watching these nullifiers. Now, I'm not too worried about nullifiers at this point because there really is no place for smudges to go. And there is a lingering image, so we need to make sure we're avoiding that frontal and the slash, but unfortunately there is an emissary out as of right now, so I'm going to be targeting that emissary because I do not want her to empower these mobs. There's a nullify going off. And I'm going to just focus these guys because the lingering image, I can just safely avoid the frontal being back here. It is what it is. You just keep going. Now this is the intermission before the second boss. Oh, sorry, there's that Dread Flail going off. She will spawn 3 rounds of ads before she actually comes down, and you just need to kill the ads and, you know, just keep killing it. Unfortunately, you can't stop. Like, once you trigger it, you're triggered and you're starting. You're starting that little kind of, like, intermission. But you do have time between the second, like, the last round of fighting and then the second boss. So, like, if your healer needs mana, like ours just said he does, that's when they're going to sit down and drink, because like I said, you can't stop. You got to keep going. So there's another herald in this, so just avoiding these guys coming at me. They're little like ghosties on the ground. No nullifier in this group, just the herald and the screechers. Are they called screechers? Scroungers, sorry. Emissary out, gonna start focusing the emissary. This hallway is much easier than the first one, I have to admit. Now, your tank may go different directions, just like with any given dungeon, but this hallway is a little bit more forgiving than the first hallway because there's less, like, on the ground to avoid, where the first hallway was just, like, purely chaotic. You got the beams that if you run into them, they, like, incapacitate you. You know, it's a lot going on in that front one. Here's our last round of ads before the boss comes down and spawns. So I'm just going to focus on downing these guys. Focusing on the Sentinel because the Sentinel does some pretty big tank damage. I have to say, this side is probably worse on tanks than the other side, but the other side's worse on DPS than this side. Alright, so now we're getting ready for this boss. This boss is very interesting. She does a lot of tank busting damage. She is definitely a hard-hitting boss, so mitigate your defensives as much as possible. She will target 2 players at the start with, well, roughly at the start, with these 2 circles. Just take them out of the group. Just take them out of the group. You don't have to, like, run ridiculously far. Just take them out. She just does damage to you with them, and you don't want people in them, because we don't want the whole raid taking damage. She will call adds, and these adds are no different than what we've seen before. There's a nullifier every once in a while. There's voidlings. There's a dread flail, so that's important. Of course, there's an emissary out right now, so I'm going to target her. And then the second phase to this boss, which is really like the second and the fourth phase, is a lingering image will charge her. Now you see how it's creating that line of gold? We're going to actually stand in that. And we're going to lust here, because this is a burn phase for her, but it's also a burn phase for us. So while we're standing in this, we are taking massive damage. The healer needs to pop their CDs to keep us up. We need to pop our defensives to help out our healer, but we're lusting because she is taking increased damage. Now the goal is to get this done in as little phases as possible completely, but you do more damage during that phase, so make sure you're standing in that flare, popping your defensives, and paying attention, because if you stand in between her and the lingering image, you will get stunned. You have to stand behind her when the lingering image is coming down. Just simply avoid that initial line on the ground that is gold, and you'll be fine. Just make sure you're always behind the boss is the other way to say that. Just keep her in front of you instead of behind you at any given time. Oh, I don't know what just went off there. Alright, so see how I'm not standing? If you stand in that right now, you will be stunned. So we're going to wait to stand in that until she gets stunned. Because if not, you just take massive damage and you get disoriented. And it's not a pleasant time for anybody. Especially not your healer. So I'm going to get rid of this emissary while they start doing that. And then we start the last gauntlet to the last boss, guys. We are cruising. So after you down your second boss, you transport back to the center, just like we did the first time. But this time you actually have to click on the little console up here, because we have to form the bridge. Now this bridge is a very tough bridge to handle, I will admit that. You have a lingering image, but you also have these flare bats. The lingering image does what it has always done, which is a swipe frontal, and then the cone frontal, which disorients you. But the biggest issue is people get targeted by these radiant swarms. They just chase you. It doesn't matter if you have aggro of it or not. They just chase you. So if you are being chased by these swarms, please do not run away from the group. Please bring it to the group, because we need to AoE damage them down. If you are running away from the group, we cannot help you. We cannot help you. It's as simple as that. So please, if you are targeted, stay in the group. Now the other part of this is while we're running down the bridge, the tank is usually going to be in front trying to get this lingering image to move, which means that that frontal is going to be facing down the bridge. It's going to be facing front. Please make sure that you are behind the lingering image at all times. Now, when we get here to the end, there are these light routes. I don't really know what to call them. You interrupt them or crowd control them, and I did just interrupt. I clicked my interrupt, and it didn't interrupt it, so I'm not entirely sure. That's been happening a little bit. But these need to be interrupted. Those holy bolts do a lot of damage, and they're quite annoying to heal through. So try and interrupt it or crowd control it as much as possible. There's also an emissary out, so we're going to focus that. Oh! There's another... I'm actually going to focus the light elemental dude light route now, because he is my prio target. I need to be interrupting these holy bolts, whereas with the lingering image, I know it's going to do a frontal. Now see how this guy is bringing this radiant swarm out? This could be down already. It's requiring a DPS to come out, a melee DPS to come out and attack it. Now yes, I can help attack it as ranged DPS, I'm not denying that fact, but if you simply just kind of stack together and bring it into the main area where people are doing damage, it will be down in no time. Please stop running those away. And that goes for anything. Like, that is a rule of thumb when it comes to Mythic Plus in general, or dungeons, raids, whatever. When something is aggroed to you or attacking you, generally you want to bring it into the group. The only time that that is not true is when you are being chased with a whirlwind, for example. You do not want to bring that to the group. Alright, so last boss here is Lothraxion. He acts just like the Lingering Image, so he's going to do that Searing Rend on the tank, which is that frontal. The only thing he doesn't do is the Cone of Disorientation, so you don't have to worry about that, but he will target 3 players at a time with these circles. And what it does is it creates clones of him. So it will spawn 2 circles roughly at a time, and it will create a clone of himself. Now these become important in a little bit, but they do flicker, so they jump to different parts of the platform, and you'll see the beam as to where they're jumping in the direction. Just pay attention and stand out of that. You generally don't want to stand on the tank. Even if you're melee, you kind of want to stand behind the tank. And you don't really want to overlap these dispersions. We need to be able to see them, and I'll get to that in a second. His next phase is why we need to be able to see them. He goes into the Guile phase. We are looking for the clone of him that does not have horns. I repeat, does not have horns. That's the clone we are looking for. And you should only be interrupting that clone. They are all casting, and interrupting the clone that does not have horns will bring him out of that phase. If you interrupt a clone that has horns, you will do massive group damage. And it will get to a point where you can't heal through it if you keep interrupting. So look at all of them, try and find the one that does not have horns. Now, if you are a healer during that phase, so we know many healers do not have interrupts, if you are a healer during that phase and you find the one without horns, ping it. Do not try and damage it or interrupt, ping it. Let us get it. So again, we just go into the same phases over and over again. Avoid the frontals from the flickers as they move across the map. Bring your images close, but not too close. You don't want to really overlap them because then we have trouble seeing the horns. We're going into another phase. Oh, you also don't want to stand on them, but I feel like that should be obvious. We're going into another Guile phase. We are looking for the one without horns, and we're going to interrupt that one. See? Alright, he was right here. It was close, though. I almost didn't see him because he was close to the other one. And that's it, guys. It's literally that simple. Just keep repeating the phases. The biggest thing is paying attention during that Guile phase and really only looking for the ones without horns, because that damage is... it's massive, I promise you. And it is not always recoverable. But there you go. There is that Nexus... I don't even want to know. Nexus Xenus. I don't even know. Nexus Point Xenus. If you like what you saw and you want more Mythic Plus guides or just have some questions, please let me know in the comments below and hit that subscribe button to be notified anytime I post a Mythic Plus guide.